When we look at 100 random teenagers, we find that 1 to 2 of them have minds that work in a unique way. These teenagers could be diagnosed with autism. Interestingly, boys are diagnosed 4 times more often than girls. This doesn't necessarily mean that autism is more common in boys. It might be because it's easier to spot in boys, or because autism can look different in girls. ASD is a developmental condition that affects how a person's brain works. People with ASD experience the world differently from others. They often have more sensitive senses and a strong need to find logic in their surroundings. Some key characteristics of ASD include difficulty with social communication and interaction, repetitive behaviors or interests, sensitivity to sensory input, like sounds, lights, or textures, a preference for routines and predictability. It's important to understand that autism is called a spectrum disorder because it affects each person differently. Some people with ASD might need a lot of help in their daily lives, while others might need very little. The way we understand autism has changed a lot over time. In the past, people didn't know much about it. They often thought it was a type of childhood schizophrenia, or that it was caused by cold parenting. The autistic brain processes information in unique ways. For example, many people with ASD are very good at noticing small details that others might miss. They might see patterns that aren't obvious to most people. However, this detailed focus can sometimes make it harder to see the big picture or to generalize information. Let's look at an example. A child without ASD might see a dog and quickly think, "That's a dog," based on general features like 4 legs and a tail. But a kid with ASD might notice the exact shade of the dog's fur, the shape of its ears, and how it moves. They might not immediately put it in the dog category because they're focusing on all these specific details. This different way of processing information can be both a strength and a challenge. It can lead to amazing abilities in fields that require attention to detail, like science or art, but it can also make some everyday tasks more difficult. Many people with ASD have heightened sensory perception. This means their brains might process sensory information more intensely than others. Sounds might seem louder, lights brighter, or textures more noticeable. To cope with these intense sensory experiences, many people with ASD engage in stimming behaviors. Stimming is short for self-stimulatory behavior. It includes things like hand flapping, rocking, or repeating certain words or phrases. Stimming is important because it helps people with ASD manage overwhelming sensations or emotions. It can be calming and help them focus. Many people with ASD find social interactions tricky. They might struggle with understanding unwritten social rules, reading body language, and facial expressions, knowing when it's their turn to speak in a conversation, making or maintaining eye contact. Eye contact can be especially hard. For some people with ASD, it feels uncomfortable or even painful. They might look away not because they're not interested, but because looking directly at someone's eyes is too intense. Understanding and expressing emotions can also be challenging. A person with ASD might have trouble identifying their own emotions, find it hard to understand others' emotions, express their feelings in ways that seem unusual to others. For example, they might not cry when they're sad or laugh when they're happy. This doesn't mean they don't feel these emotions. They just might show them differently. Some people with ASD learn to mask their autistic traits in social situations. Masking means hiding behaviors that might seem different and trying to act more like people without ASD. This can be very tiring and stressful. Many people with ASD have intense interests in specific topics. These aren't just hobbies, they're passionate, deep interests. Someone might know everything about trains or spend hours learning about space, or be able to recall tiny details about their favorite TV show. These special interests often come with a strong desire for logic and patterns. People with ASD might enjoy organizing things in specific ways, get upset when routines change, excel at spotting patterns. Others miss. These traits can be both a strength and a challenge. On one hand, they can lead to incredible expertise and skills. Many successful scientists, artists, and engineers have ASD and use their intense focus to achieve great things. On the other hand, it can be hard to shift focus when needed, or to engage with topics outside the special interest. Executive functioning is like the brain's control center. It helps us plan, organize, and complete tasks. Many people with ASD struggle with executive functioning. This can affect time management. It might be hard to estimate how long tasks will take or to be on time for appointments. Organization. Keeping track of belongings or organizing thoughts can be challenging. Flexibility. Switching between tasks or adapting to changes in plans might be difficult. Impulse control. Some people with ASD might act without thinking about consequences. These challenges can make daily life tricky. For example, a student with ASD might have trouble breaking down a big project into smaller steps, or might forget to bring the right books to class. Girls with ASD often show different signs than boys. They might be better at copying social behaviors, making their autism less obvious, have intense interests that seem more typical, like animals or books, be quieter or more withdrawn rather than disruptive, show anxiety or depression instead of behavioral issues. These differences can lead to girls being underdiagnosed with ASD. Other reasons include the criteria for diagnosing ASD were originally based on studies of boys. Girls might be better at masking their autistic traits. There's a misconception that autism mainly affects boys. This underdiagnosis can mean girls miss out on early support. Adults with ASD face unique challenges and opportunities. Employment. Many adults with ASD have valuable skills like attention to detail and logical thinking. However, they might struggle with job interviews or workplace social interactions. Relationships. Some adults with ASD have happy partnerships and friendships, while others find social relationships challenging. Independent living. Some adults with ASD live independently, while others need ongoing support. Let's move on to support and therapy options. Early intervention is key for children with ASD. This might include speech therapy to help with communication, occupational therapy to assist with daily living skills, behavioral therapy to work on social skills and manage challenging behaviors. There's been a shift from autism awareness to autism acceptance. This means recognizing autism as a different way of thinking, not just a set of challenges, celebrating the strengths and contributions of autistic individuals, advocating for accommodations, rather than trying to fix autistic people. This ties into the concept of neurodiversity, which sees neurological differences like autism as natural variations in human brains. The question remains, should we focus on therapy, celebration, or both? Let us know your views in the comments and hit that like and subscribe button if you find our content helpful.